to you, sir.
Okay, so today we are going to continue from where we left on during our last session, and the topic of the program continues to be Indes demystified, because that is the broad plan that we have for the entire series. And as you know that we intend to cover all practically all the entire gamut of the Indes one by one. So, what we have done so far, we have done introduction and the background to index. After that, we did overview of 39 indices, where dividing all the indices into three different categories. We have looked at each one of the indices one by one to understand them. We have looked at the framework of index. As I said, and I'm repeating it purposely, because this is something that should become part of your basic understanding as far as indices are concerned. So we looked at the framework, which is in the foundation of the entire building of index. After that, we looked at the roadmap for implementation of index in India, and we discussed as to how different companies in a phase-wise manner are going to be covered under the index. Then, of course, we started with the Index 1, and that is what we were doing last time when we met. That was that was on Saturday. So let us continue from the place where we left. So the plan for the day today. तो हमारा जो आज का प्लान है वो ये है कि पहले तो हम वी विल कंटिन्यू इंडेक्स 1 से, जो हम जहाँ से हमने पहले छोड़ा था वहाँ से कंटिन्यू करेंगे. और उसके बाद फ्रेंड्स आपको बताऊं कि इंडेक्स में एक डिवीजन 2 है, डिवीजन 2 ऑफ द शेड्यूल 3 टू द कंपनीज एक्ट. आई एम श्योर all of you are quite familiar with the schedule 3 to the companies act 2013, and in that schedule 3 there is a division 2, and division 2 relates to the companies on whom or for whom index has become mandatory. So we would also look at the provisions of division 2 of schedule 3, and this is necessary, friend, in my opinion, because both are connected. You know, schedule 3 is part of the companies act. Ultimately, implementation of index is governed as per the provisions of the companies act section 133. So all that we will have to understand. So we will look at the division 2 of the schedule 3 as to what are the salient features which we need to understand. So we would look at those, and then we would continue with the index 1, which is on presentation of financial statements. Time permitting, we will come to index 34, which is on interim financial reporting. Though I am little doubtful whether we would be able to complete the entire index 1 today. It is quite possible that some of it will spill over for tomorrow, but that is perfectly fine, because our idea is not to complete the formality. Our idea is to have in-depth understanding of each of the indices that are part of the entire index gamut. So this is how we would continue. So let's continue with index 1, presentation of financial statements. A quick revision. What are the components of financial statements? Number 1 is the balance sheet, and as I said earlier, under the IFRS. See, my idea is also to simultaneously keep you aware of some of the salient aspects of the IFRS together with index, because all said and done, as we discussed some time back, index and IFRS, they go hand in hand. As a matter of fact, we call it in India as index. What we call in India as index is really speaking nothing but IFRS. We call it index because to some extent we have adapted it as per our requirements. So the balance sheet that we call under the index, the same thing under the IFRS is called as a statement of financial position. Then a statement of profit and loss, which is called as SOCI, Statement of Comprehensive Income under the IFRS. Then we have a statement of changes in equity. This is a new statement which is part of the financial statements under the Ind-AS. It was not there earlier. I am sure all of you would remember. Earlier, you would simply prepare a balance sheet. In that balance sheet, you will have an item called reserves and surplus, and of course the equity. Equity would be what it is. Whatever changes that would happen during the year in the reserves and surplus, that would come in the balance sheet as a schedule. But now, under the Ind-AS, the scope of this statement has been increased. So under the Ind-AS, you have a separate statement by itself, and that is a statement of changes in equity. Then of course we have a cash flow statement. Now to mention it here for the benefit of all of you, the Schedule 3 to the Companies Act 2013 does not specify any format for the statement of cash flow, as it does in case of the balance sheet and in case of the profit and loss statement. As regards the cash flow statement, it leaves it to the standards. So whatever format would be prescribed by the standard, जिस कंपनी के लिए Ind-AS मैंडेटरी है, उस कंपनी ने कैश फ्लो स्टेटमेंट उस स्टैंडर्ड के हिसाब से बनाना है. एंड दैट स्टैंडर्ड, दैट अकाउंटिंग स्टैंडर्ड इन केस ऑफ Ind-AS is 7, Ind-AS 7. And then of course notes to account, which of course are very, very crucial and critical. So these, friends, are the 5 components of financial statements. This is a quick revision, and then I'm sure you would recollect that we discussed when Ind-AS is supposed to be complete as far as the set of statements are concerned. And these 7 statements is what we discussed last time, and I am just trying to make you aware as to what we have discussed already. So these are the 7 statements that we have. And what is important is the 7th one. And 7th one is, in case if the entity has reclassified or have changed its accounting policy retrospectively, in that case, this entity will not only have to present the financials of the current year and the preceding year, but also the balance sheet at the beginning of the preceding year will also need to be presented in a situation like that actually. So these are the 7 statements which will form part of the complete set of financial statements under Ind-AS 1. Then we discussed general features or principles that needs to be followed in the presentation of financial statements, and those are quickly going concern. We all understand going concern simply means the entity does not see, or the entity believes that it is going to continue to operate in the force in all times to come. In other words, it does not see itself to folding the operations. So that's your going concern. Accrual basis, of course, is something which is part of our DNA, because that is what we read from the very first session that we attend as part of our course. Then materiality and aggregation, offsetting, frequency of reporting, which is it has to be minimum once in a year, and otherwise it can be any number of times, so there is no limitation as such. Then comparative information, I think, which is integral part of the accounting. So you have to give the comparative numbers of the previous year as well, so that the user of the financial statement is able to make sense out of the financial statement by comparing the current year's numbers with the last year's numbers. Then of course consistency of presentation would simply mean that whatever you have, whatever practices that you have followed, continue to follow the same practice, same system, same process, so that there is a consistency, so that the user of the financial statement does not get confused about them. And then of course fair presentation and compliance with the Ind-AS. So these are the 8 principles that have to be followed in preparation of the financial statements, and these are stipulated under the Ind-AS 1, which is on presentation of financial statements. Now some question I'm sure must be coming to your mind, and the question that must be coming to your mind is when will financial statements of an entity shall be deemed to have been drawn as per Ind AS? तो एक कंपनी के लिए, एक एंटिटी के लिए application of Ind AS has become mandatory. How will the user of the financial statement will get to know that these statements are as per the Ind AS? Now for that there has to be, so the Ind AS 1 stipulates that such account, such financial statements will have to make an explicit and unreserved statement in confirmation of compliance with the Ind AS. That means the financial statements will need to incorporate a statement saying कि ये जो financial statements बनाए हैं ये fully Ind AS के compliance से बनाए हैं. That means these financial statements are in full compliance with all the applicable standards to the entity. So that is the mandatory requirement that we have to remember. Then a question that must come to your mind, and that is, can an inappropriate accounting policy be corrected with necessary disclosure? कहने का मतलब क्या है? कहने का मतलब यह है कि क्या कोई कंपनी इनएप्रोप्रिएट अकाउंटिंग पॉलिसी यूज करे और एक डिस्क्लोजर दे दे कि भाई दिस इज व्हाट वी हैव डन. Can that mistake or can that inappropriate accounting policy be corrected by a disclosure? And the answer is bold no. Any inappropriate accounting policy cannot be corrected with any amount of disclosure or any kind of disclosure. So the accounting policy that is used in preparing the financial statements has to be the current accounting policy. Then there is another question that might come to your mind, and I am sure it must have crossed your mind. Can departure from the requirements of an Ind AS, whether it is permissible? An answer to this is, if you read carefully the Schedule 3 to the Companies Act and also the guidance issued by the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India on the Division 2 of Schedule 3 of the Companies Act and also the Ind AS 1, it is possible that if a situation warrants, then there can be a departure by an entity which is in line with the prevalent position, and such departure is permissible provided necessary disclosure is made in the financial statements. So this is the answer to this question, whether departure from the requirements of an Ind AS are permissible, and this is the answer. Now let's look at the Division 2 of the Schedule 3 to the Companies Act 2013. So what are the provisions that you have in this schedule? So number one, balance sheet. देखिए, Schedule 3 provides a format of the balance sheet and sets out the minimum requirements of disclosure on the face of the balance sheet. यानी कि Schedule 3 of the Companies Act 2013 specifies that this is the format in which the balance sheet has to be prepared, and it also specifies the disclosures which are to be made. At the same time, it also clarifies that the disclosure which are to be made as per Schedule 3 are not in substitution of the disclosures required under Ind AS. These disclosures are over and above the disclosures which may be necessary under the Ind AS. Items presented in the balance sheet are to be classified as current and non-current. So please remember, when you are making a balance sheet of an entity to whom Ind ASes are applicable, what you have to do, you have to ensure that you present the financials in the balance sheet, all the items in the balance sheet, classified them into two categories as the current and the non-current. So the assets will need to be presented in two groups, current assets and the non-current assets, and likewise the liabilities also will need to be presented in two groups, that is current liabilities and the non-current liabilities, which is as per Schedule 3 of the Companies Act, or to be very specific, Division 2 of Schedule 3 of the Companies Act. Remember, Schedule 3 does not permit companies to avail of the option of presenting assets and liabilities in the order of liquidity. Now, this is what is to be made note of. Ind AS 1 provides that a company can do the presentation of the financial statements in the order of the liquidity, but the Schedule 3 does not permit. But at the same time, if you read Schedule 3 very carefully, Schedule 3 also talks that in case if the provisions of Schedule 3 are in conflict with the provisions of any of the indices, then Ind AS would prevail. So this is what I thought you would like to know at this point in time. Now, coming to the statement of profit and loss, Schedule 3 provides a format of the statement of profit and loss also, and it sets out the minimum requirements of disclosures on the face of the statement of profit and loss. That is what, as I said earlier, the Schedule 3 not only gives the format of the balance sheet but also gives the format of profit and loss statement, but it does not give the format for the statement of cash flow. The statement of profit and loss is to be presented in accordance with the nature of expenses and would include profit or loss for the period and other comprehensive income for the period. So the profit and loss statement, not only as per Schedule 3 of the Companies Act, but also as per the Ind AS 1, will have to be a one single statement. But that single statement will need to be divided into two parts. The part one will be the profit and loss part, and the part two will be other comprehensive income. So this is what the profit and loss statement format is going to be. As I said earlier, then besides the profit and loss or balance sheet, Ind AS also introduced a new document, and that is statement of changes in equity. So unlike in the past, where all the changes in the equity will primarily reflect in the schedule on the reserves and surplus, but not anymore. Now what you have a separate statement by itself, and that statement is statement of changes in equity. So this is a new state component for the financial statements. The statement of changes in equity would reconcile opening to closing amounts of each component of equity, including reserves and surplus. So as we progress, what we are going to do, friends, we are going to look at all the statements. So we are going to look at the balance sheet line by line. We are going to look at the P&L line by line. Then we are going to look at the statement of changes in equity also line by line. As far as the statement of cash flow is concerned, we will cover it at the time when we come to the Ind AS 7, which is on statement of cash flow. So statement of changes in equity will be reconciling the opening balances with the closing balances as to how the closing balances have arrived. Okay, and then as I said, as regards the statement of changes, statement of cash flow, the statement of cash flow would be presented when required in accordance with Ind AS 7, that is statement of cash flow. So this is what is the provision as far as the Schedule 3 of the Companies Act is concerned, or to be very precise, Division 2 of Schedule 3 of the Companies Act is concerned. Now friends, here I would also like to mention that the Institute of Chartered Accountants has also issued a guidance note on Division 2 of Schedule 3 to the Companies Act, and it is my strong recommendation to all of you that you must go through this guidance, because this guidance, which has been issued by the Institute, very minutely covers each and every aspect of the Ind AS of the financial statements, as per Division 2 of the Schedule 3 of the Companies Act. So I would very strongly recommend and suggest that you must spend some time in going through these guidance. Now,
one question.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Sir, one question is that difference between Ind AS, IFRS and GAAP, and is IFRS and AS are comparatively same. I think that is covered in the session 1, right?
Yeah, it was covered in session 1. It was covered in session 1. So
are you going to explain it?
Yes, I will do it. Tell me. Of course, we will certainly any question that comes, Rishikesh, we will take it then and there only, because that is the whole objective, that we should clarify the doubts as and when they come. Okay. So see, remember, is the difference? The question is, what is the difference between Indian GAAP, Ind AS, and IFRS? Is that clear, Rishikesh?
Yes.
Okay. तो देखिए, number 1, Indian GAAP is the original GAAP which is still applicable in India, or to the companies to which Ind AS is not applicable. So in India, let's first understand the difference between the Indian GAAP and the Ind AS. Then we will understand the difference between the Ind AS and the IFRS. So देखिए, or let me start it from the other side. First I will explain you the difference between the IFRS and the Ind AS, and then I will explain the difference between the Ind AS and the Indian GAAP. तो देखिए, globally, because of globalization of the economy across the world, the different people, different governments started feeling, not only the governments but also the businessmen across the globe started feeling that if I have to invest in a country, the least that I must understand is how the accounts of that country are prepared, how the financial statements of that company are prepared. If I am not able to understand how the financials of that company are prepared, then I am always at sea as far as my investment is concerned. So therefore, globally, now you have a common accounting language which today is being used in more than 140 countries across the globe. And those who are not using, either they have adapted or they are in the process of falling in line with the global accounting. This global accounting is known as IFRS. In India, IFRSs were to be implemented from 1st April 2011 originally. But for some reason, the implementation could not happen. In the course of this time, we realized that it would not be appropriate for us to adopt the IFRSs in the same form as they are today. So we decided to adapt the IFRSs to suit the Indian requirements. And therefore, the adapted IFRSs which are being used in our country are referred as Ind AS. So in simple words, or in other words, Ind AS is nothing but adapted version of IFRS which we are using in this country. Now, IFRS in this country are being used in a phase-wise manner, and that phase started from 1st April 2015 when the companies were asked to prepare their financial statements on voluntary basis. Then from 1st April 2016, the implementation became mandatory. Became mandatory for whom? Became mandatory for those companies who were listed on any of the exchange, either in India or outside India, or were in the process of getting their debt or equity listed on any exchange within India or outside India. And their net worth was more than 500 crore. So for these companies, Ind AS, and remember, I for the sake of benefit of the person who has asked this question, I am answering. What is Ind AS? Ind AS is adapted version of IFRS. So practically, virtually indices that we are using in India are nothing but IFRS with some modification here and there. That's all. So now, from 1st April 2016, all the companies which were listed or in the process of listing, either India or outside India, having a net worth of more than 500 crore, Ind AS implementation became mandatory for those companies. Not only for those companies, but also for the companies which were the parent company or subsidiary company or a joint venture company or an associate company of any such entity. So for these entities also it became mandatory. From 1st April 2017, the entities whose net worth was more than 250 crore, less than 500 crore, and why less than 500 crore? Because all the entities whose net worth was more than 500 crore, for them Ind AS had become mandatory from 1st April 2016 itself. So all other entities whose net worth was more than 250 crore and all the other listed companies, for them also the Ind AS became mandatory. Now Ind AS became mandatory and the other condition also remained the same, that any company for which, and this is a generic rule, any company for which Ind AS application of Ind AS becomes mandatory, in that case is parent company, subsidiary company, joint venture company, associate company, for them also it becomes mandatory to apply. So this, my friends, is the difference between the Ind AS and the IFRS. Now, what is the difference between the Ind AS and the Ind AS and the Indian GAAP? Indian GAAP is the original GAAP that was prevalent in this country before advent of Ind AS. And that means what? That means all the companies in India for whom Ind AS is not applicable, by default, Indian GAAP is applicable. So this is the difference between the Indian GAAP, Ind AS and the IFRS. Rishikesh, I hope I have answered the question of this person.
Absolutely.
Okay, very good.
Andy More, are you satisfied? Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
One more question.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Can we present expenses in profit and loss? Nature of functions?
Okay, I'm going to come to the profit and loss account and going to cover it in any case at that point in time. So you can ask this person to hold the query and it will get answered in any case in the course of time as we move forward.
Yes.
Right? Okay, very good. So now the question is, the Ind AS 1 also talks about identification of financial statements. Meaning what? Meaning there is some information which needs to be given in respect of all the financial statements which are prepared by an entity. What those informations are? Those informations are, number one, with regard to every financial statement, whether it is balance sheet or it is Rishikesh, your speaker phone is on. Can you mute yourself?
आपके हिसाब से आपके हिसाब से will build करेंगे.
Rishikesh, please mute yourself.
Because common currency की बात हुई है. We are also going to integrate the same pattern here also.
All right. Okay. Let's continue. So we were talking about identification of the financial statements. So that means what? That means whether it is balance sheet or it is a profit and loss statement or it is a statement of changes in equity or it is the statement of cash flow. Every statement will have to disclose certain minimum information. And what is that minimum information that has to be disclosed for the purpose of identification? Number one, it has to display name of the reporting entity, and that we all know. So हम सबको मालूम है. So that is, it would always say XYZ Limited, and it also has to indicate not only the name of the entity, but अगर पिछले साल में कंपनी का नाम चेंज हुआ है, then the entity also has to disclose this information together with the name of the reporting entity. Then number 2, it has to disclose whether the financial statements are of an individual entity or group of entity. That means, is the financial statement, is it standalone or it is a consolidated financial statement. So the statement on the face of it will also need to disclose this information. Reporting date or the reporting period. So if it is a balance sheet, it has to be reporting date. If it is profit and loss, it has to be reporting period. So that is what will need to be disclosed. And then presentation currency. So whatever the financial statement, what is the reporting currency in which the financial statement has been prepared, that also will need to be disclosed on the face of the financial statement. And then of course a label of rounding off. So you do not have to give the numbers in digits. You should always round them off. So you can round them off in thousands or in lakhs or in millions or in crores. So this is what you should do. So whatever rounding off that you are doing, that also needs to be disclosed on the face of the financial statement. So these are the friends, and somebody was asking this question as to what are the important questions. So this is one area where you may get a question as to what are the things which are required to be done for the identification of the financial statements. Now let us come, friends, to the balance sheet. Now once again, let me tell you at this point in time, balance sheet under the IFRS, balance sheet is referred as statement of financial position. Under the Ind AS, it is referred as balance sheet. So this is the difference between the Ind AS and the IFRS as far as nomenclature of the financial statement is concerned, or statement of financial position is concerned. अब देखिए, as per Ind AS 1, there are certain line items, minimum line items, that have been specified in the standard itself. That means these line items have to be there in a financial statement of an entity. So what those line items are, and just pay attention, those line items are in the asset side and also in the liability side. तो एसेट साइड में क्या क्या है? एसेट साइड में है सबसे पहले प्रॉपर्टी, प्लांट एंड इक्विपमेंट. नंबर 2 इन्वेस्टमेंट प्रॉपर्टी. नंबर 3 इंटेंजिबल एसेट्स. नंबर 4 फाइनेंशियल एसेट्स. नंबर 5 investments accounted for using the equity method. Number 6 biological assets in case if the company has any. Number 7 inventories. Number 8 trade and other receivables. Number 9 cash and cash equivalent. Now here, friends, I would certainly like to share with you that is as to what is the meaning of cash equivalent. We all understand what is cash. Is very simple. जो पैसा आपके बैंक में पड़ा है या जो पैसा आपके ट्रेजरी बॉक्स में पड़ा है, वो that is your cash. But what is cash equivalent? Now cash equivalent are those short-term investments which can be liquidated very quickly at the stated amount and where there is no risk of any change happening in the amount of investment. So that is your cash equivalent. So generally the securities which may be falling due for payment within a period of next 3 months would be considered as cash equivalent. तो कैश इक्विवेलेंट का मतलब ये है कि वो कैश नहीं है लेकिन कैश से कम भी नहीं है, यानी कि इस इन्वेस्टमेंट को कितनी जल्दी से जल्दी इसको कैश में कन्वर्ट किया जा सकता है. So that is your cash equivalent which has to be part of your balance sheet. And the 10th item as part of your balance sheet on the asset side is the total of assets classified as held for sale, HFS. That means there may be certain assets which you are holding for sale. Now those assets will also need to be shown on the balance sheet of the entity. Now I am sure you must be wondering as to what is this held for sale. तो फ्रेंड्स इसके बारे में आपको बताऊं कि there is an Ind AS 5 and Ind AS 5 is on non-current assets held for sale and discontinued operations. So what is Ind AS 5? Ind AS 5 is, it is possible that a company may decide to sell off one of its plant, one of its division, one of its unit. सो अगर कंपनी बोर्ड ने एक डिसीजन ले लिया है कि भाई ये जो डिवीजन है हम इसको बंद करने वाले हैं, ये जो यूनिट है इसको हम बंद करने वाले हैं, ये जो प्लांट है हम इसको बंद करने वाले हैं और इसको बंद करके सेल करने वाले हैं. अब इस प्लांट, ये जो प्लांट है, ये जो ये आपकी बैलेंस शीट में कैसे रिफ्लेक्ट होगा? ये आपकी बैलेंस शीट में रिफ्लेक्ट होगा एज अ सेपरेट लाइन आइटम. यानी कि जो एसेट्स को आपने डिसाइड कर लिया है डिस्पोज करने के लिए, वो एसेट्स को आप रेगुलर एसेट्स के साथ में नहीं दिखाएंगे. यू विल शो देम एज अ सेपरेट लाइन आइटम. और क्यों दिखाएंगे सेपरेट लाइन आइटम? बिकॉज ये जो एसेट्स हैं, these assets are not going to be my operating assets in the times to come. So therefore user of the financial statement must be made aware of it, and that is why that is the last 10th item as per the Ind AS, and that is assets held for sale will need to be shown as a separate line item as far as the assets are concerned. Then let's look at the liability side. So in the liability side, or equity and the liability side, there are eight items which are specified by the Ind AS 8. Now what are those eight items? Number 1 is trade and other payables. Number 2, provisions. Number 3, financial liabilities other than the trade and payable and the provisions. Number 4, liabilities and assets for current assets as defined in Ind AS 12, which is on income tax. Number 5, deferred tax liability. So please remember, there is one is current tax and the second is deferred tax liability. So the tax liability can be on account of the current tax. The tax liability can be on account of deferred tax liability. So the deferred tax liability also will need, or the deferred tax assets will also need to be shown separately as per Ind AS 12, which is on income tax. Number 6, liabilities included in disposal groups classified as held for sale. अब देखिए, मैंने आपसे थोड़ी देर पहले कहा Ind AS 105 के बारे में. And what is Ind AS 5? Ind AS 105. Ind AS 105 is about assets held for sale or for discontinued operations. So जिस तरह से as per Ind AS 105 you will show the assets of a discontinued operations as a separate line item. Likewise you will also show the liabilities of discontinued operations as a separate line item. Logic is same, purpose is same, कि जो आपका यूजर है फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट्स का, वो समझ सके कि भाई ये लायबिलिटी जो दिख रही है बैलेंस शीट में, ये लायबिलिटी एक बार ये बिजनेस सेल हो गया, डिस्पोज ऑफ हो गया, तो ये लायबिलिटी दोबारा दिखने वाली नहीं है. एंड दैट इज द रीजन व्हाई यू हैव दिस सेपरेट लाइन. ओके, देन ऑफ कोर्स नंबर 7 इज नॉन कंट्रोलिंग और द माइनॉरिटी इंटरेस्ट. दैट इज व्हाट हैज टू बी शोन इन द बैलेंस शीट. एंड फाइनली issued capital and reserves attributable to owners of the parent also needs to be shown separately in the balance sheet of a company. Now friends, these are the 18 different line items, 10 under the asset side, 8 under the liability side, which have to be shown in the balance sheet of under the Ind AS 1 for as far as the presentation is concerned. Now, I would like to ask you a question, and Rishikesh, in case somebody answers, you can please let me know. The question that I would like to ask is, can an asset, and I'm talking about Ind AS, I'm not talking about the Indian GAAP. So, as per the Indian GAAP, can an asset which is held for a period of more than 1 year be classified as a current asset in the balance sheet as per Ind AS? And this is the question to all. If somebody responds, Rishikesh, please let me know.
Yes, sir. Wonderful. Everyone, please answer. Everyone, please answer whether it is correct or incorrect. No issues, no problem. They are replying with yes, sir. And Mohammed Chipai saying yes if unconditional right exists.
If unconditional right, what unconditional right? And I'm talking about the current asset, not the liability.
Saloni Kumbad is saying in case there is a different operating cycle.
Okay,
Yes.
very good, very good, very good. I think that's very good. What is the name of this person?
Saloni Kumbad.
Okay, very good, Saloni. I think very nice. So, friends, now what we need to understand, typically, under the Indian GAAP, what was the definition of current asset? Definition of current asset was any asset which is expected to get converted into cash within a period of 12 months from the reporting date was to be classified as a current asset. Now, under the Ind AS, this definition has undergone a slight change. And what is the slight change? The slight change is this period of 1 year, which was applicable under the existing Indian GAAP. Now, this period has been further modified. And what is the modification? The modification is, in case if a company's normal operating cycle is of a period longer than 12 months, in such a case, an asset can be classified as current asset if it is within that operating life cycle, normal operating life cycle. You must ask this question as to why is the need for Ind AS to have such kind of a provision? Why 12 months was not good enough? Why to bring in this new concept of normal operating cycle? And let me explain this to you with the help of an example. Now, you have these wineries, which make wine. Now, if any one of you have had a chance to visit any of these wineries or read about them, you will know that the processing time from the crushing of the grapes to production of the final wine and its packing, that period runs sometimes around 3 years. And that means what? That means under the old system, the inventory, the work in progress of a winery will not be classified as a current asset. And why it will not be classified as a current asset? Because it was going to be converted into cash not within a period of 1 year from the date of the reporting period, but that period may be 2 years or 3 years. What was the problem? The problem was wineries will have a challenge in getting their working capital financed. And why will they have a challenge in getting their working capital financed? Because banks will tell them, we can finance your inventory, we can finance your current assets only to the extent they are of a period of less than 1 year. If they are for a period of less than more than 1 year, we cannot do it. So the wineries had a tremendous working capital problem. So was the case with the aircraft making company or a ship making company, because ship making will not happen within a period of 12 months. Aircraft will not be manufactured within a period of 1 year. So therefore, Indes has got a new system, and the new system is that an asset can be classified as a current assets even though it is being held for a period longer than 1 year, so long as it is not being held longer than the normal operating cycle of the entity. So this is what it is. So just to give you sum it up as to how do you classify a current asset, an asset as a current asset under the Indes, these are the provisions. So number one, it is expected to be realized or is held for sale or consumption in the entity's normal operating cycle. So remember, if the normal operating cycle is less than 12 months, then the parameter or the criteria of 12 months will be applicable. But if the normal operating cycle is longer than 12 months, then the normal operating cycle period, whatever it may be, that will be applicable. It is expected to be realized within a period of 12 months, which is what the normal thing is. It is held basically for trading purpose. So if an asset is being held for trading purpose, doesn't really matter as to how long it is held. So long as the intention is to use it for the purpose of trading, it would still be classified as a current asset. And finally, it is unrestricted cash or cash equivalent as defined in Indes 7, which is on a statement of cash inflow. फ्रेंड्स, मुझे मालूम है कि कैश क्या है आप समझते हैं, कैश इक्विवेलेंट क्या है मैंने अभी एक्सप्लेन किया है ऑलरेडी. आई एम श्योर यू मस्ट बी हैविंग अ डाउट इन योर माइंड एज टू व्हाट इज दिस restricted cash. How do you explain what is restricted cash? So let me tell you friends, what is restricted cash. You know, many times in company what happens, there is a deposit the company has placed with a bank. And why the company has placed this deposit with the bank? Because the bank has issued a bank guarantee at the request of the entity. And as a condition, bank has stipulated कि अगर आपको 10 करोड़ की गारंटी चाहिए तो आपको हमारे पास में 1 करोड़ की डिपॉजिट रखनी होगी. Now, this deposit which the entity is keeping with a bank, it is classified or it is defined or it is understood as restricted cash. And I'm sure you can understand it now very easily. Why it is referred as restricted cash? It is referred as restricted cash because ये पैसा एंटिटी का है, ये पैसा कंपनी का है. ये 1 करोड़ रुपया जो कि कंपनी ने बैंक के साथ में डिपॉजिट करके रखा हुआ है, ये 1 करोड़ रुपया कंपनी का है. लेकिन क्या ये कंपनी इस 1 करोड़ रुपए को फ्रीली यूज कर सकती है? आंसर इज नो. सो अंटिल द टाइम द गारंटी इज कैंसल्ड, दिस कंपनी, दिस एंटिटी कैन नॉट यूज दिस 1 करोड़ ऑफ डिपॉजिट. देयरफॉर दिस इज क्लासिफाइड एज अ restricted cash. So in case if there is a restricted cash in the balance sheet of a company, then this restricted cash will not be forming part of the cash and cash equivalent. And why it will not be forming part of cash and cash equivalent? Because cash and cash equivalent you can use it at any time. But the restricted cash you cannot use as per your choice. Restricted cash you can use only after it is made free. So this is what is your restricted cash. So this is how these assets will be defined as the current asset. So it is unrestricted cash. So we have to understand restricted cash and the unrestricted cash. So there is unrestricted cash. इसका मतलब क्या है? इसका मतलब यह है कि ये पैसे को आप कभी भी आप इस्तेमाल कर सकते हो. It will be classified as a current asset. But if it is restricted cash, the example that I gave you, in that case it will not be classified as a current asset because you cannot use it at any time as per your choice. So this is what is the definition under the Index 1 as far as the current assets are concerned. Let us do a small case, and I'm sure all of you would be able to answer this to me. There is an entity which operates in the aircraft building industry, and it is involved in building aircrafts for local and export clients. The average operating cycle is 20 months. यानी कि on an average it takes 20 months to complete manufacturing of an aircraft. Based on the length of time it takes to build an aircraft. यानी कि एक एयरक्राफ्ट को बनाने में कंपनी को 20 महीने लगते हैं. इसका मतलब 20 months is the normal operating cycle of this company. Management presents a classified statement of financial position to distinguish the entity's current and the non-current assets and liabilities. The entity holds a held to maturity investment that is to mature in 15 months. यानी कि समझ गए केस क्या है? ये केस है एक एयरक्राफ्ट मैन्युफैक्चरिंग कंपनी का, और इस एयरक्राफ्ट मैन्युफैक्चरिंग कंपनी का जो नॉर्मल ऑपरेटिंग साइकिल है वो 20 महीने का है, और इस कंपनी के पास में कुछ इन्वेस्टमेंट हैं जो कि हेल्ड टू मैच्योरिटी की कैटेगरी में है, यानी कि HTM की कैटेगरी में है, और दोज आर टू मैच्योर in 15 months time. Now the question to all of you is, and I'm sure you will answer it correctly, the question is, how will you classify this held to maturity investment? Will you classify this held to maturity investment as a current assets or as a non-current asset? This is the question to all of you. Rishikesh, let me know if somebody answers it. So let me know anybody who answers this question कि held to maturity investment है और 15 महीने में वो मैच्योर होने वाला है. As per Index definition of current assets, will it be classified as a current asset or it will be classified as a non-current asset in the balance sheet of this company?
Anupam Pandey and Saloni Kumbat says current assets.
Okay, and ask them why current assets.
Why current? Because entity's normal operating cycle is 20 months.
Okay. Now please remember, held to maturity investment has got nothing to do with the normal operating cycle of a company. What is relevant for the normal operating cycle is the inventory, receivables and work in progress. Held to maturity investment का operating cycle से कोई भी लेना देना नहीं है. So therefore, if HTM investment is going to mature within a period of after a period of 15 months, then this investment which is held to maturity will be classified in the balance sheet of the company as a non-current investment and not as a current investment. Rishikesh, you can check with them. I'm sure it must be very clear to them.
Okay, I will check them.
Yeah.
one query is that
Yeah.
from Saloni.
Yeah.
Held for sale and held to maturity. Are they both same?
नो नो, दोनों सेम नहीं है, दोनों सेम नहीं है, दोनों में फ़र्क है. एंड सलोनी फ़र्क बहुत सिंपल है. हेल्ड फॉर सेल एंड हेल्ड टू मैच्योरिटी. अब देखो ध्यान से सुनना. हेल्ड फॉर सेल का मतलब क्या है? हेल्ड फॉर सेल का मतलब है यू आर होल्डिंग एन एसेट फॉर सेल. तो जैसे ही उसका कस्टमर मिल जाएगा आप उसको सेल कर दोगे. तो अगर कोई हेल्ड फॉर सेल है, दैट विल कम इन योर बैलेंस शीट एज अ करंट एसेट. हेल्ड टू मैच्योरिटी के केस में आपको देखना पड़ेगा व्हाट इज द पीरियड टू मैच्योरिटी. सो इफ द हेल्ड टू मैच्योरिटी इफ द पीरियड इज लेस देन 12 months, it will be classified as a current investment. But if the held to maturity, the period is more than 12 months from the reporting date, it will be classified as a non-current investment. I hope that answers your question, Saloni. Can you, Rishikesh, confirm?
Saloni, is your answer, your question resolved?
I'm sure it must be. Okay.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, very good. So she is clear as to what is the difference between held for sale and held to maturity. Very good. All right, available for sale. So you call it available for sale AFS and held to maturity STM. Very good, friends. And let's take. So this is the answer. As I have explained, as I said, remember, HTM has got nothing to do with the normal operating cycle of the entity, and therefore if an investment STM is more than 12 months, it will be classified as a non-current investment and not as a current investment. Now the question that I would like to answer, or I would like to ask, how do you define non-current asset? And friends, remember, the answer of course is very simple. Under the index, you will have to understand the definition of a current asset, and which will be, number one, look at the normal operating period. Number two, look at the period of 12 months. Number three, look at whether this is held for trading. So if any asset is held for trading, it's going to be classified as a current asset. And number four, is it available for sale? So for defining an asset as a current asset, you will need to look at all these four parameters. But for defining the non-current asset, it is very simple. So what is the definition of non-current asset under the index? The definition of non-current assets under the index is very simple. An asset which is not a current asset is a non-current asset. It's really as simple as that. यानी कि कोई एसेट अगर वो करंट एसेट करके डिफाइन नहीं हो रही है, क्लासीफाई नहीं हो रही है, इसका मतलब बाय डिफॉल्ट इट इज अ नॉन करंट एसेट. सो वॉट एवर इट मे बी. So this is the definition of non-current asset that you need to bear in your mind. Any asset which is not a current asset, by default it becomes non-current asset. One more question, friends, to all of you, and I'm sure you would be able to give an answer to this question as well. Can a liability payable beyond a period of 12 months be classified as current liability in the balance sheet of an entity under index? So this is the question. So earlier it was with regard to the current asset. Now this is with regard to a current liability. Can a liability which is payable beyond a period of 1 year, can it be still be classified in the balance sheet of the entity as a current liability? If yes, then how? Rishikesh, please ask this question and let me know.
Yes. Please answer the questions visible on your slide. Saloni Pandav, no.
No. Okay.
Any more answer?
Okay,
Before
yeah.
proceeding to answer, sir, one I think related query is there from Anupam Pandey.
Okay.
If HFS means held for sale
Right.
are more than operating cycle, can it be classified under non-current?
Okay, very good. So, what you are asking, Rishikesh, can HFS is a non-operating asset? Can it be still qualified as a current asset? Is that your question?
I will repeat his statement.
All right,
I don't know what it does mean.
no problem.
If HFS
Mm-hmm.
are more than operating cycle,
हाँ.
can it be classified under non-current?
देखो HFS का मोर देन ऑपरेटिंग साइकिल ये डिसाइड करना पॉसिबल नहीं है. एंड समझ के लीजिए क्यों पॉसिबल नहीं है. HFS का मतलब क्या है? हेल्ड फॉर सेल. हेल्ड फॉर सेल का मतलब क्या है? हेल्ड फॉर सेल का मतलब ये है कि आप सामान लेके तैयार बैठे हो. आप सामान लेके तैयार बैठे हो, ग्राहक आए, प्राइस पे करे और वो लेके जाए. सो दैट इज वाई द क्वेश्चन ऑफ द पीरियड फॉर एन HFS held for sale being longer than the normal operating period, that question does not arise. And therefore, held for sale will always be reflecting as a current asset in the balance sheet of a company. So what I have done, I have tried to answer your question with the help of logic behind this answer. I hope it is clear to you.
Maybe yes. Till that, I will read out the answers.
Huh.
Saloni Pawar says no.
Mm-hmm.
Anupam Pandey says, I think it would cover under current if it is under operating cycle.
Mm-hmm.
Shiza Malik says yes.
Okay.
And Anupam Pandey says, yes, sir, that is my question. If it is not sold in normal operating cycle, then what will be the situation?
Okay. Good, very good. So what we have is we have a mixed bag of the answers. So some are saying that it will be classified as a non-current asset. Some are saying it will be classified as a current asset. Okay. So we will answer this question, and let's understand first the definition as to how do we classify a liability as a current liability. Now, please understand, as we discussed with regard to the current asset, and what we discussed, that in case if the normal operating period of an entity is for a period which is longer than 12 months, in that case, if an asset is held for a period longer than 12 months, but within the normal operating period, this asset, which can be inventory, which can be receivables, which can be WIP, will be classified as a current asset so long as it is being held for a period which is less than the normal operating period. Now this, friends, is also applicable in case of current liabilities as well. So if the normal operating period of an entity is of a duration which is longer than 12 months, in such case a payable if it is liquidated in a duration, or it is expected to be liquidated in a period more than 12 months but less than the normal operating cycle, in such case the answer will be that it will still be classified in the balance sheet of the company as a current liability. So let us understand the different aspects of the current liabilities as to when a liability will be classified as a current liability. So number one, it expects to settle the liability in its normal operating cycle. तो उसका जो normal operating cycle है उसके अंदर अगर वो settle हो रही है and that period may be longer than 12 months, but within the normal operating period which is more than 12 months, this liability will be classified as current liability. It holds the liability primarily for the purpose of trading. ठीक है, तो ट्रेडिंग के लिए अगर कोई लाइबिलिटी को आपने होल्ड किया हुआ है, doesn't really matter actually in reality for what period it is held by you, it would still be classified as a current liability because you are holding it for trading. ट्रेडिंग का मतलब क्या है कि जब मौका मिलेगा तब आप उसको बेच दोगे. So if it is held for trading, liability held for trading, irrespective as to when do you really finally sell it off, it would still be classified as a current liability. Number 3, the liability is due to be settled within 12 months after the end of the reporting period. तो वो तो नॉर्मल केस हो गया कि नॉर्मल केस में भी हमको मालूम है कि कोई लाइबिलिटी 12 महीने के अंदर अगर पे होने वाली है, it will be classified as a current liability. And finally, and this is what is important because somebody had answered a question referring to this provision when I had asked about the current asset. So, when will a liability be classified as a current liability even if it is held for a longer period? Now, please pay attention here. It does not have, that means the entity does not have an unconditional right to defer settlement of the liability for at least 12 months after the reporting period. यानी कि अगर एक लाइबिलिटी जो कि कंपनी की लाइबिलिटी है, उस लाइबिलिटी के लिए एंटिटी के पास में अनकंडीशनल राइट नहीं है टू डेफर इट फॉर अ फर्दर पीरियड ऑफ मोर देन 12 months, then this liability will be classified in the books of the entity as a current liability. As a current liability. That means what? That means the entity has a right to defer, but that right to defer is only for 11 months. So even though there is an unconditional right to defer the payment of the liability, but that period is only 11 months, in that case also it will be classified as a current liability. But if the unconditional right is to defer it for 12 months, for at least 12 months, so 12 months or more, in that case it will be classified as a non-current liability and not as a current liability. अब यहाँ पर चीज फ्रेंड्स एक और चीज जरा नोट करिए और ध्यान से सुनिए. Terms of a liability that could, at the option of the counterparty, result in its settlement by the issue of equity instruments do not affect its classification. That means unconditional right तो नहीं है, लेकिन ये जो liability है वो equity में convert हो जाएगी. In that case also it will be classified as a current liability only. Why? Because since the liability is getting converted into equity, the entity does not have right to defer the payment of this liability beyond a period of 12 months. And therefore, even if as per the terms of the issuance, the liability is getting converted into equity in future, in that, even that case also, it would still be classified as a current liability. So this is how, friends, you would classify a liability as a current liability. Let us have a small case on this one also. On 1st January 2012, entity X has entered into a facility arrangement with a financial institution to ensure availability of X's बैंक फाइनेंसिंग फॉर नेक्स्ट 7 years. यानी कि 1 जनवरी 2012 को एक्स ने एक बैंक के साथ में कॉन्ट्रैक्ट किया और उस कॉन्ट्रैक्ट के हिसाब से ये बैंक अगले 7 साल तक ये एक्स कंपनी का जो फाइनेंसिंग है उसकी पूरी उसका फाइनेंस करेगी फॉर नेक्स्ट 7 years. What will be the classification of this loan facility in the statement of financial position on 31st March 2018 in the following situations? ठीक है ना. तो 1 जनवरी 2012 को ये अरेंजमेंट किया है ना. 1 जनवरी 2012 को हम किस तारीख की बात कर रहे हैं? What is the reporting date? The reporting date is 31st March 2018. यानी कि 31 मार्च 2018 को आप ये जो फैसिलिटी आपने ली है उसको आपकी बैलेंस शीट में फॉलोइंग सिचुएशंस में कैसे दिखाएंगे? नंबर 1, देयर इज नो रीअरेंजमेंट, यानी कि जो 7 साल का अरेंजमेंट किया है इट विल एक्सपायर वंस दी 7 years आर कंप्लीट. नंबर 2, देयर इज एन अरेंजमेंट टू रीफाइनेंस द अमाउंट ऑफ लोन for another 7 years after the maturity date and arrangement is completed on 5th May 2018. तो देखिए अरेंजमेंट तो है लेकिन वो अरेंजमेंट कभी साइन किया है? वो अरेंजमेंट साइन किया है 5th मई 2018 को. एंड द फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट्स आर ऑथोराइज्ड फॉर इश्यू ऑन 30th June 2018. तो इस केस में क्या लगता है आपको कि ये जो लोन लिया हुआ है कंपनी ने वो करंट लायबिलिटी करके आएगा बैलेंस शीट में कि नॉन करंट लायबिलिटी करके आएगा? एंड थर्ड इज देयर इज एन अरेंजमेंट टू रिफाइनेंस द अमाउंट ऑफ लोन फॉर अनदर 7 years आफ्टर द मैच्योरिटी डेट एंड अरेंजमेंट इज कंप्लीटेड ऑन 20th March 2018. So these are the 3 situations, my friends, as you can see them on the screen. You have to give me the answer कि ये तीनों सिचुएशन में ये जो फैसिलिटी बैंक कंपनी ने ली है उसको आपकी बैलेंस शीट में क्या करके दिखाओगे? करंट एसेट करके दिखाओगे, सॉरी करंट लायबिलिटी करके दिखाओगे या नॉन करंट लायबिलिटी करके दिखाओगे? दिस इज द क्वेश्चन टू ऑल ऑफ यू. ऋषिकेश.
Yes, sir. Sorry, I missed it.
I asked this question which you can see on the screen.
Okay.
And let's see if someone is answering this question.
Yeah. Reply of Mohammad Javed.
Mm-hmm.
First case, current liability. Second case, non-current liability.
Okay, and third case?
Anupam Pandey, I think it would come under current. And second, non-current.
And third situation, there are 3 situations.
No one has yet answered.
Okay, all right. So let's give 1 more minute. Let them think about it. Yeah.
Shizana Malik, first case, current liability.
Okay, second one. Good. I'm glad that they are responding. That's very nice.
Shizana Malik, third case, non-current.
Third case, non-current. Okay. And the first 2 cases?
Well, she answered first case, current liability. She skipped second.
Okay. Let us give her 30 seconds to give the answer for the second case also.
Okay.
Otherwise, okay, not to worry, Rishikesh. I think we can we can.
Also NCL, non-current.
ओके ओके, वेरी गुड. अब देखिए फ्रेंड्स, इसमें क्या होगा, इस केस को जरा समझ के लेते हैं. 1 जनवरी 2012 को फैसिलिटी साइन करी, और ये जो 7 साल के लिए साइन करी है, तो 7 साल कब खत्म होंगे? 7 years विल गेट ओवर ऑन 31 December 2018. 31 दिसंबर 2018 को 7 साल खत्म होंगे. 31 मार्च 2000 इज द रिपोर्टिंग डेट. तो पहला केस क्या है? देर इज नो रीअरेंजमेंट. इफ देर इज नो रीअरेंजमेंट, इसका मतलब क्या है? इसका मतलब ये है कि 31 मार्च 2018 से लेके अगले 9 महीने में, यानी कि 31 दिसंबर 2018 को दिस मनी विल हैव टू बी पेड बैक, एंड देयरफॉर द आंसर इज करंट लायबिलिटी. The answer is current liability because it has to be paid back within a period of 12 months from the reporting date. Situation number 2. There is an arrangement. But remember, when is the arrangement signed? The arrangement is signed on 5th May 2018. That means the arrangement is signed after the reporting date. What is the reporting date? Reporting date is 31 March 2018. तो सवाल यह है कि क्या 31 मार्च 2018 या उससे पहले रीअरेंजमेंट प्लेस में था? द आंसर इज नो. एंड सिंस द आंसर इज नो, इन द सेकेंड केस ऑल्सो दिस फैसिलिटी अमाउंट विल बी ट्रीटेड एज अ करंट लाइबिलिटी. क्योंकि 31 मार्च 18 का जहां तक सवाल है, उस दिन व्हाट वाज द पोजीशन? उस दिन पोजीशन ये थी कि कंपनी कुड बी आस्क्ड एनी टाइम टू पे द मनी बैक, और टू पे द मनी बैक बिफोर 31 December 2018. तो सेकेंड केस में भी इट इज गोइंग टू बी करंट लायबिलिटी ओनली. इन द थर्ड सिचुएशन, लेट अस सी व्हाट इज द थर्ड सिचुएशन. अरेंजमेंट इज देयर. Arrangement is there. Sorry. Arrangement is there, and it is signed when? It is signed on 20th March 2018. मतलब क्या है? 31 मार्च को what was the position? The position on 31st March was that the arrangement was in place. That means on the reporting date, company was not obliged to repay the facility within a period of next 12 months, and therefore in case of situation number 3, it will be treated as a current liability. In first two situations it will be treated as a, in the third situation it will be treated as a non-current liability, and in the first two situations it will be treated as a current liability. Rishikesh, you can check with them and tell me. Rishikesh, you can please check with them.
Should I check their answers?
Yeah, sure, of course. No, just ask them whether they have understood my explanation.
Okay.
Just ask them whether they have understood my explanation.
Yes.
Very good.
Guys, did you understood the explanations? One query, sir.
Yep.
From Saloni Kumbar. Sir, had there been any discussion for rearrangement then?
Yeah, okay, go ahead, Rishikesh.
Saloni, please elaborate your question. Saloni, please explain your question. Mohammad Chipa is okay, Shiza Malik is okay, Mugdha Bodhankar is okay, sorry, Anup Mande is okay. Mugdha Bodhankar says, please repeat again in short.
ओके देखो मुग्धा, ये बहुत सिंपल है. लुक एट इट फ्रॉम द प्रैक्टिकल पर्सपेक्टिव. व्हाट इज द रिक्वायरमेंट? द रिक्वायरमेंट इज ऑन द रिपोर्टिंग डेट. व्हाट इज द पोजीशन? ऑन द रिपोर्टिंग डेट is the entity under an obligation to refund the amount, or it is not under the obligation to refund the amount within a period of 12 months. तो सिचुएशन नंबर 1 में अरेंजमेंट ही नहीं है. देर इज नो रीअरेंजमेंट. सिंस देर इज नो रीअरेंजमेंट, the amount has to be refunded back on 31st December 2018, which is within a period of 9 months. So therefore it has to be a current liability. In situation number 2, arrangement है, but that arrangement was signed on 5th May. 5th May 2018. What is the reporting date? Reporting date is 31st March 2018. Is on 31st March 2018, is the arrangement in place? The answer is no. So on 31st March 2018, what was the position? On 31st March 2018, position was that company was to pay the money back on 31st December 2018, and therefore it has to be classified as a current liability only. Third situation, very simple. Arrangement has been signed on 20th March, well before the reporting date. So reporting date is 31st March 2018. Rearrangement is signed on 20th March 2018. So on the reporting date, because the arrangement has been signed already, the company is not under obligation to pay the money back on 31st December 2018, and therefore it will be classified as a non-current liability. So this is what it is, friends. So this is how the answer will be, as I have explained to you. So even though the last one says current liability, but then you read it as non-current liability. All right, friends. So now I think it's 5 past 10. What we can do, or maybe I think we can call it a day, and we would continue again from here, and we would be starting tomorrow, as you can see on the screen, with the balance sheet, which is as per इंडेस 1. सो इंडेस 1 की रिक्वायरमेंट के हिसाब से बैलेंस शीट कैसे बनेगी, इंडेस 1 के हिसाब से P&L कैसे बनेगा, स्टेटमेंट ऑफ चेंजेस इन इक्विटी कैसे बनेंगे. सो दिस इज व्हाट वी विल अंडरस्टैंड टुमारो, एंड वी विल, इफ टाइम परमिट्स टुमारो, then we will also take index 34, which is on interim reporting, interim financial reporting. So that is what we will do. And Rishikesh, for the next 2 minutes, you can quickly check with them in case if they have any question. So if they have any question, I will take them. Else we can say good night to each other.
Yes. Previous question, now it has been elaborated.
Okay.
I will read it out for you. Had there been any discussion for rearrangement before 31st March?
Yeah.
And can it be then classified as event occurring after balance sheet date, as balance sheet is issued on 30 June 2018?
Right.
In reference to second case.
Okay. See, now the even if there was some discussion, what was the situation on 31st March 2018? So even if there was some discussion, but that discussion did not materialize before the reporting date, and therefore it would be treated only as a current liability. So ultimately you have to see from the reference of the reporting date, what is the position on the reporting date. Reporting date से पहले हो गया है तो ठीक है. अगर रिपोर्टिंग डेट के पहले नेगोशिएशन है, डिस्कशन है, लेकिन एग्रीमेंट साइन नहीं हुआ है रिपोर्टिंग डेट के पहले, इन दैट केस इट विल बी treated as a current liability only. Okay.
Saloni, are you satisfied?
Okay, you can go to the next question in the meantime.
Any disclosure required, sir, then?
What is that?
Regarding that query only. Any disclosure required?
In case in this situation, no, there is no disclosure required per se, because it is a clear-cut situation actually. So there is no mandatory disclosure required per se, but in case if voluntarily you want to add that the facility, okay, so the facility was the entity was in negotiation with the bank for the renewal of the facility, and the facility was finally agreed by the bank on a date after the reporting date, and therefore the facility has been accounted for in the books as a current liability. So this disclosure can come, which will help the reader to know कि भाई it has come as a current liability, but de facto it has become a non-current liability. So that disclosure can come.
Yes, she's satisfied.
Okay, good.
And Mugda's question is that, thank you, sir. Can questions from study material can be solved in live class?
हाँ बिल्कुल करेंगे ऋषिकेश, ये सारे बच्चों को जिस तरह से भी हम हेल्प कर सकते हैं ना करेंगे. तो अगर कभी बाद में मुझे सतारा आना पड़ा या कहीं और आना पड़ा और इनके साथ में लाइव केस क्लास लेनी पड़ी, तो अपन प्लान कर सकते हैं. देयर इज नो प्रॉब्लम. आई विल बी वेरी हैप्पी टू हेल्प ऑल ऑफ देम विद द लाइव क्लास ऑल्सो समटाइम्स. सो
Live class means this class.
अच्छा, ये इसमें प्रॉब्लम ये है ऋषिकेश, इसमें कर सकते हैं, पर ये टेक्नोलॉजी की लिमिटेशन इतनी है अपने पास में कि अपन कैसे करेंगे उनको एक्चुअली. सो बट वी विल ट्राई. अगर कोई जरिया पॉसिबल है, जैसे कुछ किसी तरह से कर सकते हैं, तो हम लोग डेफिनेटली करेंगे. तो ये ऑल दी स्टूडेंट्स दे शुड गिव सम आइडियाज. उनको उनके हिसाब से ये क्या कर सकते हैं, कैसे कर सकते हैं. तो आप मुझे आइडियाज दो, और अगर जो भी वर्केबल आइडिया होगा जिससे आपको मदद होगी, आपको हेल्प होगी, हम लोग 100% करेंगे, बिल्कुल करेंगे. ऑलवेज ऑलवेज.
Yes.
Yep. All right, Rishikesh. So I think we can sign off now. This is 10:10. So thank you so much, and thank you everybody. See you tomorrow. We would continue from where we are leaving now. So we will again meet tomorrow at 8:30 and continue from here. Thank you so much, and wish you good night and have a very, very nice evening. Thank you.
Yes.